the Radio Forest Podcast.
Hey, Paul Rappaport, welcome, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, Forrest. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. We're here to talk about your book, Gliders Over Hollywood. My first question is, do you still have that 62 Les Paul Jr.?
I do. I could never sell that or give it away. I mean, it's a wonderful present, that was given to me by the Blue Öyster Cult as a thank you. And it's a wonderful instrument. It's what we call a real guitar because it was made in the 60s, handcrafted in those days. Plays like butter, and it has a wonderful pickup on it, and it's got a beautiful soul. I brought it to band practice a few months ago, and my bass player said, "Don't bring any other guitar back here," because none of them sound like that. And I said, "Well, of course they don't. This is how they used to sound. This is original stuff,
That's probably tied with like my probably favorite guitar of all time. So those can get pretty expensive. Do you have any idea, not including the connection to the Blue Öyster Cult? I mean, they can be upwards of $10,000. Any idea? Because that one is quite a bit old. Any idea on the value of that guitar?
I don't really know. I know it's gone up in value over the years. What's the guitar you're speaking of? You're saying your favorite guitar, or is it?
Mine is the Les Paul Jr. I also like the Carina Flying V, which, kind of within the same ballpark.
Yeah.
Because also the 60s. So like the 60s original guitars like that are some of my favorites. And I know that Les Paul Jr. can be upwards of $10,000 in the early 60s. So I just didn't know if you thought yours is probably in that price range, more or less.
I have no idea. Of course, for a lot of players, the coveted guitar is the Les Paul 59 Burst. I have a friend who's the foremost vintage guitar buyer, seller, collector in the world, and he gave me one to play. She said, "Look, you should know," because I also have a 59 reissue, which they did a nice job on, but of course, you can never replicate, original. And he gave me a 59 Burst, and he said, "Take this home. Obviously, don't play it at a gig or anything. Don't take it to a bar. You just keep it under your bed because those things are worth $250,000 and up.
Wow.
Because that guitar is known as the guitar for rock. That's the Jimmy Page guitar. That's Jeff Beck original, Eric Clapton original. This is what these guys were playing. So many rock and blues records are made with the Les Paul, and the 59 is the one where it all came together. So, so that was an amazing experience just to play that guitar. People say, "Oh, well, is it worth it?" The answer is it is. The guitar is so amazing it plays itself. I mean, it's really special.
Talking to Paul Rappaport, his book Gliders Over Hollywood, and he was a senior vice president of rock promotion at Columbia Records. Why don't you explain real quick what rock promotion means for a record company, what that entails?
Yes. So in my time, which is 70s, 80s, and into the 90s, when rock radio was so big, and classic rock is still big today, but when, it's in its heyday, my job was to talk to radio programmers, turn them onto new music, and hopefully find a way to entice them to play something new from my record label, as every other record company was doing. And then once the record was on the air, hopefully it got listener response, and if it did, then to do a big promotion around this, let's say a new band that I'd be promoting, so that it enhances a listener's view of what this music is, and to learn more about it. So it was pretty much radio driven. The press people were in charge of everything that was written. So my job is really rock radio promotion.
And this got you involved with so many bands, like we were talking about the Blue Öyster Cult. And I've got another question about a guitar and a rock star. How does Elvis end up with your guitar and then actually on an album?
That's a wonderful story. Being a guitar player, was easy for me to have nice relationships with a lot of artists, especially the guitar players, because as you know, it's like a, the guitar is like your friend. It's all of us players. We're like in a club. We all love this instrument, and we share this love for this instrument. It would be easy for me to have conversations with Ronnie Wood or Keith Richards or David Gilmour from Pink Floyd just about the guitar, and we would become friends, over these kind of talks. When Elvis first started, he was looking for a Rickenbacker because the Rickenbacker guitar is a wonderful rhythm instrument. You don't usually hear a lot of lead solos played on a Rick because it's just the sound of it is a jingle jangly kind of a sound. He wanted one. He plays a jazz master, but he wanted a different sound. But he wanted one with original pickups. Because the Rick only has a specific sound, a lot of people would get them and they'd switch out the pickups so that they would have something that would be more versatile, that they could switch to another pickup, to get more of a crunch or a bite. He didn't want that. He wanted an original guitar. That was the first real guitar I bought in my high school band. It took me 2 years to save up for it. It was $450. I'm a blue-collar kid. It takes a long time for me to save up for that. And I played it in my high school band, which you read about in my book. And it was sitting under my bed because I was starting to learn the blues, and I needed a different kind of guitar to play the blues. I needed, for me, it was a Gibson Melody Maker at the time. I loved the sounds of these Gibson guitars. I was a big Mike Bloomfield fan. He was playing a Les Paul. Anyway, so I had a Rick sitting under my bed, and I went shopping with Elvis looking for a Rickenbacker with original pickups, and we could not find one. I never switched out the pickups in a guitar because I believe guitars have souls, and if you want a different soul, just get another guitar. I'm not going to take a guitar and change the brain of it like Frankenstein or whatever. It's just how I am. And I said, Al, I have a Rick. Why don't you just take mine? And he offered to pay for it. He goes, well, I should buy it from you. And I said, I've been given guitars over, in my life, I've been given guitars, and it feels like I should give one back. And you and I are becoming friends, and I'm a big fan of your music. It's going to mean more for me to give it to you. So I just gave it to him. I was surprised months later when he called. I'll never forget, it was late fall, and he said, you're going to be very happy. And I said, what? He said, well, my new album, Armed Forces, your Rickenbacker is all over it. And I said, oh, that's great. My 1967 Rick that I bought at Downey, California Music for $450 makes the big time. And so it's fun for me. So every time I hear, Oliver's Army or What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding or any of these songs off Armed Forces, I hear my Rickenbacker, and it's great. It's a lot of fun. So that's how that happened.
That's super cool. We're just about out of time. So one final question.
Uh-huh.
I can't believe it hasn't happened yet. I assume eventually all bands will get back together. But what are your thoughts on Roger Waters and David Gilmour? It seems like that cut is so deep, there's no chance right now. But knowing those guys and their personalities, do you think that's ever a possibility?
Sadly, I don't. I mean, they did come back together for Live Aid, right? Which Bob Geldof got them back together, which was an amazing feat. It's just a feud that's been going on for so long. It's sad. They're still feuding. It's like, guys, we're in, 2025. Nobody cares anymore. Yeah. It's like, what are we, 10? Can we just grow up? But, it happens in bands, and then, somebody, throws a flamethrower this way, and then somebody says something bad about this person. And I just don't think they can work together again. And it's sad because, of course, the greatest Pink Floyd is the original band. David and Nick went on without Roger, and those records are really good. They're different, but they're really good. But for Pink Floyd fans that harken back to Animals and, Wish You Were Here and these kind of things, it was a special group of guys that managed to work together to make some great music. But I would not hope for that. And it's sad, frankly. I'm glad that David Gilmour still tours. Roger tours the Wall. So you get to see them not together, and you get a glimpse of what that was when they were together, and it's a mighty big glimpse. So I'm happy they're still around, but I don't think so. Sorry.
He's got other stories about the fame of McCartney, Bob Dylan, hanging out with the Stones, and more. It's Paul Rappaport, Gliders Over Hollywood, Airships, Airplay, and the Art of Rock Promotion with Columbia Records as the Vice President of Rock Promotion. Paul, it's been fun talking to you today, man. I appreciate the chat.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.